All right. Today we've got great content and a lot of it. So I'm going to get right into this. Here we go. Bill Predebon is going to start things off, and you know what? He is just a great guy. He knows what he's talking about, and he's here to share that with us. We're going to jump right into it. Bill, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Ron, my friend. How are you, buddy?
Fantastic. Glad you're here.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for doing what you do as always. It's always a pleasure to get your message in the morning and chat it up with you a little bit. And I just appreciate the opportunity that you guys have given me to share on this line every week. So I'm honored, privileged, and humbled. So thank you very much. Awesome. So we've got a pretty cool day going this morning. You guys are in for a treat. Today we're going to have two speakers. I'm going to let Ron introduce our second speaker as well when I finish up here in the next 20 minutes or so. And so I decided to design this training, if you want to call it that, this conversation around the gentleman that'll be following me up here. Good morning, everybody. I'm super glad you're here. As you all know, let's see, where am I at here? I'm going to put up this chat. I'll put in my phone number. You guys can just, if you've got a question and you want to have me talk about something that's important to you or on your mind right now, that's, of course, totally fine. And I'll just switch topics immediately to help to give you guys any kind of conversation. Why is that? Oh, there it is. Let's see. So cool. There's my cell phone number for everybody, because a lot of times there's new people on the phone who haven't been around, but most of you might have it already. Again, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for listening, and let's kick it off. So I labeled this, if you want to call it that, or I just want to, I thought maybe if we talked about forming habits, right, and change. Ron went so far as to put positive, so that's probably a good thing as well, right? And the reason I say, the reason we are going to talk about that, I think, is that Renatus' business is a habit that needs to be formed. It's probably not that natural for most people. It's something new. And it continually changes and grows. It's constantly moving, and you're constantly working on it. And that's, like, in my opinion, with everything. So I think the first thing we need to do, I know for me, is it starts with just being open to change, right? Being open to forming a new habit. For my thoughts, and I don't know where I heard this or where it came from, but I'm sure you've all heard it. You guys are out there in the world with your business and and your lives, but I always consider it adding things into your routine. So not taking things out, right? So, how do you give that up, or how do you not do that, or how do you change that habit or whatever? And I always think of it as I'm gonna add something new and add something better, or add something additionally to my daily routine. So, like, if you think about food, my wife brought it to me in 2008, and she just wanted some changes in the way she felt. And she did some research, as we all need to do, right? For anything, do a little bit of research. You don't have to become a doctor or anything. You don't have to become an expert salesperson to make change. You simply just do a little research as to what you want to do and in which direction you want to go. And she came home one day and she's just like, hey, we're gonna get rid of dairy, except for the cheese. At that time, we went vegetarian, and we didn't even go vegetarian yet. She just wanted to get rid of all the milk and casein. And so instantly I just said, okay, I was open to it, right? I mean, what's the worst case scenario? I go back to it if I didn't want it or whatever. But the other assumptions that you make and that I made, and and the other open-mindedness I wanted to have was that it's probably good for me, right? Like if she's doing it, there's a reason, and it's open. Same thing with like from Bob Snyder all the way down to whoever your 5-star is, and even your peers. Not that he or she isn't a peer, but your leadership and everything, and the pack members and the pit members and everything, and all the people that we're working with in any business, and that they're there in this environment at least to make a positive change and to help you and something that's good for you. So when we think about it, when I was first introduced to that concept, I assumed she was doing it for the best, right? For good reason. And secondly, I was just open to it. I'm like, okay, so maybe we'll do this. So we added in almond milk or soy milk or whatever, and then she started researching soy. But the point was, it wasn't like she made me do it. And it was just something she wanted to bring into the house and into the refrigerator. And if I chose to drink it, great. If not, I wanted to get milk, I'd buy my own and she wouldn't drink it. But I just was open to it. I was open to just going with the change and adding it into my diet. When you start to think about a meal even, and if you want to incorporate more vegetables or just different styles of eating, you begin to add things into your diet on a daily basis, right? And not that you're on a diet, but just into your daily routine of eating. So, in the morning, if you're going to have a shake and you're going to add in fruit and vegetables and greens and stuff like that, it fills you up. And so it becomes more difficult to have all of the other things that you're accustomed to having. There's not enough room, right? If you start to make changes in your business with Renatus, and you start to add in calls every day, or you add in personal development every day, or you add in a class every day, then you still only have the same 24 hours. And so people have suggested that you do these things, people that care about you, people that are coaching you and mentoring you and stuff like that. They're suggesting you do these types of things. And if you're going to do it, then you add it in. What happens is you're not taking things out. It's just pretty soon the things that have a less priority, the things that are less important to you, start to fade out first, right? You can't fit them all in. And so pretty soon you have to start making decisions as to what you're going to do, what habits you're going to change, and what you're going to fill in with your time. And pretty soon, even more important things will come up that won't fit in your day anymore, and they won't fit into your routine. And you will have to make a sweet sacrifice, if you want to call it that, a joyous sacrifice, and get rid of something that is very important to you for the time being, taking your kids to the game, picking them up from school, watching certain TV programs, cooking extravagant meals that take a long time. Whatever it is that you choose that you normally would do, you don't have that time anymore because you've added something into your day that takes up that time. And instead of taking things away, you simply add things in. And when you add things in, some things by natural course of events have to fall out, right? So the issue is, or I don't know if it's an issue, right? And I'll give it an example, but a lot of times it's new to us, so we don't have an expectation. We don't have, we don't know what is going to happen. We don't have outcomes. It's scary. It's new, like I said. And so it becomes harder to choose something that we're not familiar with, right? So we have to go back. That's why I think, you always hear about, what is your why? Your why is it needs to be strong in order to do it, because there's all this fear and anxiety. There's all this unknown. And so why would you go into that? Human nature isn't geared that way. If we're unfamiliar and we're not comfortable and things like that. Right. So we have to have that why, but what helps in that is to have people that have experiences, right? People that have been there before you. And so, that's why testimonies are so important with Renatus, right? That's why, we would not be doing this if you didn't have guys like Michael and Christian who are out there, and Scott Rowe and the pack, and then the pit members, and they're leading the way in sales and having great months and having great weeks and having great days and having great years, and helping change people and growing their teams. And Wanda and all the folks that you see in front of you, Chris Whites and these folks and yourselves, of course, included, right? You're enrolling people because they're seeing that you're taking action yourself. You've spent the $20,000. So, you've gone before them and done something they haven't done before. Just even those things, just getting started is a big step that a lot of people would not be able to take without you. So, when we're also making changes in ourselves, and we've already taken those first steps, we need to think about the folks that have gone before us, and that builds up one of those core beliefs that this is it, right? That there's nothing better, that this is good for us, that everybody needs this, but more importantly, that it's the greatest opportunity we have in the country. And so we form that habit and we form that belief by watching others do it, because we haven't experienced it yet, right? And then that helps us to go ahead and experience it. So, like, you guys hear that a lot of times I talk about being in the gym, right? I'm in the gym 5 to 6 days a week. Yesterday after morning, I had paperwork to do, so I ended up going at 6 o'clock at night. I didn't miss it. And so what's interesting is I didn't grow up in the gym. In fact, I never went to the gym. I was an athlete my whole life, naturally, or whatever, and I worked at my sport. So when I got into skiing in young age, I loved it, right? It was so, like anything, it was all I wanted to do. So every free minute I had, I would ski. When the mountain was closed, I would climb the hill and I would ski down it. My coaches back then we would skip the lift line, and we would hike the course all the time and train that way and get in shape. And so I wasn't really in the gym. When I did preseason workouts, it was a lot of soccer. It was a lot of running. It was a lot of leg work. Very little gym work. And even when I played football in high school, I just never got into the gym. I never got into the gym in college. I just skied, and then in my 20s, I was a pro skier, and I just did what I did. I just never worked out. I skied 150 days a year, and I just was never in the gym. So, some of you don't know, but I got I had both hips replaced. And when I was 34 years old, I was out in California. I was playing golf a couple times a week. I was playing hockey a couple times a week, playing softball one night a week, and running my stores. And I remember I was on Torrey Pines, a pretty famous golf course out in San Diego. And I was walking the course, and I was on like hole 14 way out on the south course, and I could not walk anymore. I was like, what? I thought I had torn a groin muscle in my groin, obviously, playing hockey the night before. And so I went to the doctor, which I never do, but I was in so much pain, I could not fix it. And the guy's like, he did this little test on me. He's like, you got to go see a specialist. So I went downstairs. I had Kaiser as my insurance at the time. And I go downstairs, and the guy, this 30 some odd year old, specialist is like, you have no cartilage. You need a new hip, and your other hip's going to go pretty soon too. And I told the guy he's full of crap. I'm like, well, that's just ridiculous. You don't know what you're talking about. And there's no way at 34. I mean, I just couldn't fathom it. I was like, there's no way at 34 I need new hips. And, for the next several years, 7-8 years, I was in pain, to the point where I would take an elevator, to the point where I was limping. I couldn't carry my bag anymore. I had to get a roller bag. I mean, it was just, and it wasn't like it was obvious to me. It was just things that progressively changed in my life, that I was in so much pain. I was trying to adapt to the pain. I stopped all sports. I couldn't play golf anymore. I was terrible after 6-8 holes. I couldn't run. So I remember after going to see 9 specialists, that I needed to get my hips done. And I figured it was for the best, right? And so I decided that I would look into getting in shape, because I wanted to come out of the surgery as best I could. And so again, here I needed to prepare. I needed to prepare for surgery. I needed a coach. I needed someone who'd been there, someone who had experience. And so, I started going to the gym, and I didn't know what to do. And I would stand around and watch people. And so what did I do? I hired a trainer. Like I literally hired a trainer in 2013 so that I could get prepared for this surgery that I was going to have. And because I didn't know what I was doing, and I needed to develop a habit. And so I forced myself to go to the gym and set a time when I knew that I would be there. Like I set myself up to win, knowing that I wouldn't want to go in the afternoon and stuff like that. So I started going at 8 o'clock, and I'm not even a morning person. But I had dogs too. So I knew I had to walk my dogs. So I knew I would have to get up early, walk my dogs, and then get ready and go to the gym. So now I had to develop this habit of getting up a little earlier. The point is I didn't do it on my own, and I did it with an open mind. Like I started with an open mind, and I decided that in order to make these things work, I had to fit them into my schedule. I had to add them into what I was doing. And when I came across something that I didn't know how to do, I had to look to someone else, right? Like we do in Renatus. You have to look to your 5-star. You have to look to your leaders, and you have to look to personal development, right? You have to look to changing or learning what you don't know so that you can dive into what you want to do. I know you all want to be successful in Renatus, whatever that looks like. I know that you all want to do real estate. You all want to, get 5-star. You all want to get on the pit and get on the pack, just like we all do. Otherwise you wouldn't be on this call, right? So with that, we have to look to people that are doing that, and not only look to the people that are doing it, but follow the habits. Like when you listen to Michael and just about most of the leaders that I know of across the country, including myself, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars, literally, like with personal development, especially at times when I didn't think I needed it, especially at times when I didn't have the money, especially at times when I didn't have the time. Like when I first got into personal development, I would go and to this 3-day event, and I was trying to do real estate and make money. Like I was several years into real estate, and I still had debt. I still had made mistakes, and I was still trying to make money. And I had to go to this 3-day event, and I wouldn't let the phone go. I would get up out of the event and I'd take a call, and I wasn't present, right? And so I had to do it again because I wasn't open to the change, and these things are so valuable and so powerful. And soon it was a point where my work was overcoming everything that I was doing, and my wife was interested in me really learning to be balanced and learning to be able to balance work and desiring money and wealth and then a family and everything else. So I needed someone who'd been there and done that, someone who could help me learn how to do that. And so I would pay for personal development, and I would not just go once. I would go 2 or 3 times to the same 3-day event. I know friends of mine and investors of mine that have gone 8 and 10 times to that same one event. I remember, for me, Keely, you got a question? Can you hear me, Keels?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like the topic, and I'm just thinking, in some conversations when you're closing with a client and you're kind of going over, trying to give them an idea of how transformational signing up for Renatus can be, and that it really is just a huge commitment as far as habit changes and mindset change, and to get the most out of it, it really does take a massive amount of adjustments. So maybe just, can you talk a little bit about what your conversations sound like with a new client who maybe is just signing up or thinking about signing up, and to give them an idea of, the massive changes that are going to need to take place if they want to be as successful as possible?
So this is an awesome question. This will lead us right up into our next speakers. That's perfect, Keely. Thank you so much. I just love your own personal journey, man. You're just an amazing girl and an amazing leader, up and coming leader. Just so proud of you. So this question is perfect, you guys. So although I know what it takes to become, and I don't know everything. What I mean is I know what Renatus is going to lead for people, what it's going to entail for people, and what changes they will run into and need to make and things like that. My main focus is not any of that. my main focus is step one. I always tell people the combo is just as simply is it. It's the beginning. Like the whole courtship and the first and second and third date with Renatus and seeing the information and stuff like that. That is setting it up. That's just getting your feet wet. That's just doing your due diligence and everything. And step one is that decision, and then putting down the 20 grand. And that's my main focus in any of those conversations. It's what the outcome is going to look like, the desired outcome, what their goals are, what why they even came in the first place. Like, from the very first Craigslist call as to why people call me all the way to the time when they're signing up. It's about why they're doing this in the first place. And we talk about that all the time. And I'll tell mostly stories through conversations as they're waiting for funding for weeks to come. And then it's about the first step. I mean, I literally had this conversation yesterday with a gentleman who's funding his last piece of his combo. Fortunately for me, this is my fourth combo this week, this last week, and I'm just having it's a cool month. And he's like, oh, I wish I didn't fund already. I'm wasting the money, already started because this other card didn't come in and stuff. And I just go back to, it's part of being an entrepreneur and everything, and that's okay. But to answer your question is, I don't spend much time on that yet. It's overwhelming, I believe, for them. And that comes in, and I don't know enough about that person on how much change they'll need to do and which parts of changes they'll need to make. I'll get to know that because they're going to be on my team, and I'll be working with them, and I'll get to see what they need. And if they have good habits with bookkeeping or keeping notes of clients, or if they have good study habits and stuff like that, we'll learn all that. But I focus on the outcome. I focus on the potential. I focus on the dream and getting them started, which is step one, which is the very, very, very beginning, which is getting started. And then once they do that and things go a little bit slower than they want them to go, or whatever that case is, exactly, Keely, I don't focus on the change that will need to take place and scare them at all. And scare might be a hard word, but I don't want them to think about what they can't do. I want them to think about what they can do. I want to think about what they're capable of and what's potentially possible, and the fact that Renatus will help them do that. And that's what my main focus is. In the future, I'll focus on, they'll naturally start to talk to people in the community, and people will let them know this is a process. That's okay. That's normal. That happens. This is what you'll need to work on. This is the opportunity. And that's why Bob will have people like Woody and people like William Lamb and these guys that are in the community that are going to help people get the personal development and recommend it to people. And then they go out and teach it. And that's why Michael always talking to you about Toastmasters and all those things to make yourself better. That will all come, right? Depending on who needs that and who needs what and who needs to get in the gym. And that's why people are surrounded by Ron Williams, and Bob puts him there in front of us, is because he knows that that's all piece. But I don't ever focus on that when I'm starting. That's overwhelming, and people can't see 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And that 3 or 4 or 5 years is too much. And because all those things have to happen, maybe not over 3 years, but even over 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 months, all those things will start to fall into place of getting healthy, starting to read, if you don't read, listening to books, that all come, but it's too much at first. The focus is, let's get the 20 grand, let's get you started, let's get you plugged in and get you listening to your education. And that will bring the outcomes that you want, and all those other things will fall into place. Great question. With that, you guys, my time is up. I just am grateful to be here, and I'm even more excited to listen to our next speaker. I'm going to turn it back over to Ron. He's going to introduce you to someone very special, someone that you may already know very well, and someone that's here to help you guys understand some of these concepts and take it to the next level, or take it to the first level. With that, Ron, I'll turn this back over to you, my friend. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Appreciate what you brought to us. I like talking about what you were talking about, filling our lives with the good things, new good things, and not leaving room for the bad things.
Absolutely.
And let me tell you here, let me introduce those of you that don't know William Lamb already, I don't know him very well. We're not in the same circles, I guess, but I've been at the trainings that he's presented. I've been very impressed. He is a man who seems to know just how to attract and bring in the good things into life, how to form those good habits, and how to let go of the bad things. And there's just not room in our life for those things that aren't building us to where we want to be. And I have every confidence that William's going to be able to tell us how to do that. William, I'm so glad you're here with us this morning.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ron. Can you hear me all right?
You bet. Well, we hear you loud and clear, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and I can't wait to hear what you've got for us this morning.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. And, that was wonderful what you said about me, and I really appreciate that. And Bill, that was beautiful, by the way. And I don't know much about you either, but just looking at your photo earlier, I'm thinking that your awesome smile has something to do with your awesome success. So thank you for the wonderful presentation. I'm honored to be here today to speak with you guys and share a little bit about what I do and what I've been able to utilize to help myself and others. And the key is about you guys, really. So I'm going to just give you guys a quick introduction. If it's possible, I would love to have screen sharing capability. Let's see. Is that something I can do? Oh, sweet. Thank you.
Yep, that should make you
right.
host.
Perfect. Okay. So are you guys seeing my screen right here?
Not seeing it yet on my side.
Let me make sure. Screen. Oh, looks like I have to set up. Well, don't worry about it. I'll just tell you guys a little bit about me and what I have seen in my industry and what I've been able to do in my life with NLP. Now, many of you have, let's have you go back to your screen if that makes it easier. So a little bit about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. There's been a lot of time that I heard about NLP in my life, but not until I was in college that I was, I had just moved to this country, and I was like, man, I noticed I had a friend that was just really, really, really excellent with people. He was so good with people that, everyone he talked to just seemed to want to be friends with him. And I thought, I would like to do that too. I would like to do that too. How is it that he's doing it so effortlessly? So I asked him, I'm like, hey, what's your secret, man? What's your secret of having the best social life, the best, everything possible? He's like, well, it's confidence. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. He's like, no, that's it. I'm like, wait, what? How is that it? There's got to be more. He's like, no, that's it. I'm like, okay, I think that we're missing something here. How do I learn confidence? He's like, nah, you can't learn it. It's one of those things that you just have. And I'm like, no, I don't believe that. I believe I can learn it. He's like, well, good luck. And I was like, wow, that's not very helpful. I got to figure this out. And that kind of lit a fire in me. I know that sounds silly, just like a simple situation. But for me, someone who had just moved into the country, who barely spoke English, I wanted to know. And I didn't want to spend decades learning the language. I didn't want to spend decades building friendships and creating that awesome lifestyle that I saw. And so to me, I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to figure out how I can do this. And I started searching everywhere. And that was when I found NLP. That was when I found Tony Robbins. That was when I found that a lot of the billionaires, a lot of the multimillionaires, a lot of the most successful people, politicians, celebrities, they were studying or being coached in NLP. And I'm like, man, I got to get on this. So being a, college student, I didn't really know a ton, and I didn't have a lot of money. So I just bought all the books I could, that I could study, that I could, just spend my time reading about. So that's what I did. And then when I started studying, I noticed a pattern. I noticed that the entire NLP system or community or teaching was about how people become, well, let me give you a little preface. Oftentimes, if you talk to psychologists, psychiatrists, there are a lot of wonderful people in the profession of, being able to help people. There's a lot of times there's more emphasis on studying how people get sick. But what we're interested in is how people get awesome, how people get well, how people get to the point where they want to be, how people get from point A to point B. Because, I mean, the reason you and I are talking and you're listening to me right now is simple, right? You believe that something I'm about to tell you is going to take you from where you are to where you want to be, or, at least part of the way, if not all of the way. Well, let me share with you a little metaphor. People say being an optimist is about, seeing the glass half full. But really, is that it? I think not. I think that being an optimist is seeing the glass outside the glass, seeing where the water comes from, seeing why the water is going into the glass and how it happened, seeing that there's endless amount of water and that there are endless more vessels that we can fill that water with, and that this half full glass is merely just one of the many millions of glasses that we could fill, if not more. So, and then you begin to see, oh, there are different liquids too. And there are other things all around the world that you could use, you could pull water from. And there's just all of these opportunities out there. Well, that's what happens when you're an optimist. So seeing the glass half full and half empty, that's too small. You want to look bigger and look outside. And some people would call this, thinking outside of the box. Well, that's really the way that a lot of successful people and creative people do naturally when you see outside of this glass. Because sometimes we look at our bank accounts as that half full glass. Like, oh, we could do more, but but we're not broke. And that's a perspective thing, right? But what about all of the millions and billions of bank accounts out there that could fund your deals, right? What about all of the talents out there of all the people that could help you do what you want to do, right? So one of the key things about being an optimist is being able to look at that and look at all of these things out there. Now, why did I bring this up? Well, because as you study and change your mindset, you'll notice that it's key to recognize that opportunities are endless. When I began this journey, back in college, I waited a few years before I really took action. That's not what I recommend, right? I mean, obviously you guys are here because you're action takers. And so what happened when I really took action was an event that inspired it. So I'm going to tell you a little story. Now, this story is a metaphor in and of itself. So pay attention. When I was finishing up college, I got started I had a startup with one of my friends, and it was a battery startup. It's at the time, there was not really a lot of people doing portable batteries, and that was rugged. We built this bulletproof, literally. We've shot it with a gun, tested it. We've ran it, we threw it down a 100-foot cliff, all that fun stuff. We built this indestructible battery for people that are in the, outdoors world or in the military. So anyway, we thought, it's going to be awesome. And it was. We made very quickly, we got to $1 million. And we thought, man, this is it. This is our dream. We've achieved it. But then we're like, wait, hold on. Our bank accounts are not full. Our business's bank account is, getting there, but our personal bank accounts are not full. What's going on? Are we able to pay ourselves? We're like, wait, we can't because there's inventory we have to buy. So we kind of got into this conversation, me and my business partner. We were like, okay, what's going to happen? Should we just, continue to work hard? Yes, of course we should. So we continue to work hard, and we observed, and we wanted to see, okay, what's next? What's next? And we realized after a year or two, yes, we made more money as a company, but personally, we still didn't get paid more. From the outside, we got written on some articles on Forbes, and people were like, oh man, you guys must be doing so well. Tell us how you do it. And we're like feeling this feeling inside that we're like, man, we're not doing that great. It's not there. So I had another conversation with my business partner. I'm like, hey man, I think there's a problem. We're plateaued. He's like, no, you just got to work more hours. I'm like, no, I think it's our mindset that plateaued. He said, no, you just got to work more hours. I'm like, you realize we work 15 hours a day. There's no weekends, no breaks, no vacations, no going on dates, no hanging out with the family. We work, that's all we do. He's like, yeah, you could work more still. And I knew that moment, I'm like, I gotta get out of this. This is not the mindset. And for little I knew about mindset back then, I was like, this is not it. I gotta look. And that moment, I was like, oh, NLP, I gotta look back into it. How are these very successful people utilizing NLP to create their success, right? So I decided to sign up for a training. And in the training, I discovered something extremely powerful. So I was asked by my trainer, so what is the one thing when you achieved it, you'll find that this is the most powerful, important investment that you've made in yourself, or the most powerful training you've taken for your mindset development? And I'm like, well, at first I wanted to say money. I want to make more money. And then second thought, I was like, oh, I want it to be personal growth. But the thing that actually came out of my mouth wasn't either. It was that I want to marry my dream girl. I want to find out who she is, and I want to marry her. And now you may be wondering, okay, what the heck is William talking about? Why is he talking about his dream girl, his marriage? This is a Renata's team call. Well, you're going to find out in just a moment. So I told him, I told my trainer, I'm like, okay, I would like to be married to my dream girl. He's like, cool. When? No hesitation. He was just like, when? I'm like, I gotta get engaged first. He's like, okay, cool. When? I was like, all right. August 31st. That was the first number that came to mind, first date. And then there was a moment of terror that came into my mind, or my body. I felt this moment of terror because I was like, oh, wait a second, this is March. This is end of March. How am I going to do this? And then he could see the terror on my face. He's like, he knew exactly what was going on. He said, hey, look, this is nothing. I've seen way crazier things. If you follow the things that we've taught you about mindset and take massive action, you're going to achieve it. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's very interesting. And so I went home and I was like, okay, I'm going to follow everything he said. And, in the training, I learned about how to design the ideal client. Well, I was like, why don't I utilize that to design the ideal wife, right? The ideal wife, the ideal partner. So I went to work. Sure enough, August 23rd, I was engaged. Now, but that's not even the most magical part. The most magical part is in March, when I set that goal, that very weekend I set the goal, my wife actually was still engaged to someone else. And she broke up with him that weekend. Now, this may sound just a little too magical, but here's the thing. All of us have had some very awesome event like unto this. And if you haven't experienced it yet, pay attention, because you'll find that it is totally possible. Now, You may say, okay, what does that have to do with business at all? Well, here's the thing. You know that we can design not only that. I thought to myself, I believe that if I could design my wife, I could design, hey, anything. I could design my ideal clients. I could design my, business partners. I could design my ideal business. I could design my life. I could design my house. Everything I want, I could design it and create it by following this process. So I'm going to share with you right now in the last 12 minutes this process. Now, let's make sure that everyone's mic is mute as I'm going to share with you this so that everyone, because we got a big team here listening. So make sure your mic is mute, and I'm going to share with you what this is, that's formula that I use. Now, you guys have all heard of SMART goals. And you're like, oh, no, William, we don't want to hear about SMART goals. We've heard that a million times. No, I'm going to share with you the billionaire's version of SMART goals. This is different. This is on top of what you've learned. In fact, the SMART goals that we've all been taught is only half the formula. So I'm going to share with you the full thing, the whole thing. And this is kind of a preview to what I'm going to be doing in Denver this Super Saturday. I'm honored to have been invited to come out to Denver and do a training for the folks out there, for the wonderful people in Denver. So I'll be sharing more of this, but this is a preview. So SMART goals, we often hear about SMART, but what do they really mean, right? You guys already know the specific, measurable, and all that fun stuff. I'm going to tell you parts that you don't know, parts that other very extremely successful people are using that are missing in what's taught. So let's get going. SMART goal, specific, right? Well, that's great. But what about being simple? What about being simple? All too often, we set goals that are way too complex, that our unconscious mind does not enjoy creating, does not know how to create for you. The thing is, your conscious mind is the goal setter, but your unconscious mind is the goal getter. So your goals ought to be set simply, because one of the laws to operate the unconscious mind successfully is simplistic goal. Now, simplistic meaning simple goals, not like, something small, but it can be as big as anything. Make it huge, in fact, but it has to be real simple, really simple. As intelligent as we all are and our unconscious minds are, you want it to be simple. Now you'll see how it all ties in together. So measurable, right, with M. Well, yeah, it can be extremely measurable. You can set a goal and say, hey, I make $1 million by this time. But guess what? If it's not meaningful to you, it doesn't matter. So M also stands for meaningful. You have to make sure your goals are very meaningful to you. It has to be very meaningful to you. And then next, well, as if now. We all know that achievable is what 8 is, but what about as if now, right? We don't set goals as if now. Let me explain a little bit. Our unconscious mind operates also on another very important law that you must remember, is that it likes to operate with through the path of least resistance. So if you say, I will make a massive amount of money in the future, well, that future will always be in the future. Your unconscious mind's like, that's in the future. We could worry about that later. Later, right? And we all know later means for some, and if not most, never. So what you want is now, right? So instead of setting your goals like I will have $1 million by December 31st, 2019, you want to say, I have $1 million US by December 31st, 2019. Now, of course, I don't think that you need to share this with everyone out there, right? Because knowing how you're going to say that sentence, you want to make sure that you keep it to yourself, because other people may get confused. Oh, do you have it now or what? So make sure that in business, keep this to yourself or your family so that there's no, legal questions on what you have or what you don't have now. But that's another point. The point is, make sure you set your goals as if now. I have let's say you want a Lamborghini. I have a Lamborghini by August 1st, 2019. You can say these things and write them down, right? As if now. And of course, achievable. But that's actually not that important. What is achievable, right? They used to say a 4-minute mile was unachievable, right? It is achievable now. So keep setting higher bars for yourself. Now, another thing about the acronym A is that it has to affect all areas of your life. If you set a goal like, I'm going to make $1 million a month, but you currently make, let's say, 10,000 a month. Well, that's going to take a lot of massive growth. But what's the time frame, right? If you say, 10 years from now, yeah, why not? Of course you can do it. If you say a year from now, yeah, certainly there's a great possibility. But if you say next month, I'm going to go from 10,000 to 1 million, and I don't even know how that's going to happen, let's say, right? Well, if you do that, other areas of your life might be affected in a way that is not balanced, which can cause resistance. Not saying it's impossible, it can cause resistance. So if you want to make the uncomfortable comfortable, if you want to make the pain go away, in fact, have a effortless experience of going to your goal, achieving your goal, you want it to be congruent in all areas of your life, that it improves all areas of your life, and you want to be aware of it consciously. So, and I'll give you an example right after this. And then, are realistic, right? Well, here's the thing. One of the key things that people don't tell you about what realistic is not what's realistic in terms of your capability. It's what's realistic in terms of how real can you make it in your mind. There was a wonderful saying, and by many of the greats, including someone named Napoleon Hill, right? And including people like Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, and many others. They say, and this is, obviously me paraphrasing it, the easier it is for you to make it real inside of you, the easier it is to make it real outside of you. Let me repeat that. The easier it is for you to make it real inside of you, the easier it is to make it real outside of you. People say, hey, so I have a vision board. I've made it real inside of me. Or have you? Right? What is a vision board going to do for you? Now, some will say, hey, it's got the visual aspect. But our 5 senses has more than just visual. Our reality has more than just visual. You want to add sound, actually. You want to utilize all your 5 senses. So when you create vision boards to aid in your ability to make things realistic, right? You want to keep in mind, everyone, let's make sure your microphones are muted for now so that everyone can hear clearly. So with vision boards, you want to make sure, okay, I can see it, but I can also hear it. I can smell it, I can taste it, and I can feel it. All of those are elements of your 5 senses, which are elements of how you can create an internal reality. Don't just visualize. Visualize with the sound, right? Hear and also feel. And remember that the smell and taste are just as important. And then next, well, timed, right? T. Yes, it has to be timed. At the same time, you have to be towards what you want. That's the key thing that's missing. Now, why is this important, right? Well, I'll explain a pattern to you. If you have ever gone to Tony Robbins' training, he'll mention this key principle in NLP is that we either are motivated away from pain or towards what you want. Well, here's what happens when you are away from pain. When you're away from pain, you go and go, you go and you go, and you go away from your pain. And this is what happens when people go far away enough from pain. They create a certain level of success, but then they're too far away from their pain. They no longer feel motivated. And then they're like, oh. Now, of course, this is not conscious. They either plateau or worse, they go back down to where their pain was, right? If people are going away from poverty, they'll get they'll get, you know, successful and perhaps even wealthy, but they'll get to a point where they're like, oh man, I'm no longer feeling that motivation. This is obviously not conscious. They'll dip back down, and you'll see a, you know, a up and down and up and down like a roller coaster. That's not healthy or fun to experience. And some of you may have felt that before. Well, the way to fix it is actually learn from it and focus towards something that you want. Because when you focus on what you want and go for what you want instead of away from, you know, your pain, you'll find that you'll keep getting closer and closer, and you'll keep setting more wants, and you'll keep going up. And the curve going down is going to be much smaller, which eliminates a lot of pain in your life. So for SMART goals, this is the format. You say I and then your name have successfully achieved, and then your goal by the given time. One last thing I'm going to say about this is that you don't want to say, I want to be wealthy, I want to be wealthier, or I want to make more money. Because if I give you 1 penny, you're wealthier. Your mind will look for the path of least resistance. So make sure you're very specific and simple, and make sure your goals are meaningful and measurable, and make sure that you set them as of now, and that it is realistic in your mind. If it's not, make it so. Create the visual, the sound, the smell, and the taste, and then time it. Time it with a timestamp, and make sure it's focused towards what you want. Now, I know this is a short little bit about what NLP is. There's a lot more. And so if you're really interested, you know, come to Denver to see us this Saturday. If you're already in the area, of course, that's easy. But if not, you know, come, you can still come. It's just a flight away. And look forward to meeting all of you, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you for having me today, guys. I'm gonna pass the time back to Ron, and thank you very much.
Thank you, William. Appreciate what you've had to present to us today. I look forward to getting to know more about you and about NLP. And everybody out there, have a great day. Go out and take charge.
Thank you.